Hey there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at two of our pages of notes. We're going to do the domains of life, which is packet page 170. And we're also going to take a look at the human classification notes, which is packet page 169. So I'm going to start over here with packet page 170 and take a look at the domains of life. So I can see that there are three domains, right, that make up all living things. We've got Eukarya, Archaea, and down here we have bacteria. So I'm going to start down here actually, right, and I can see how all three of these domains come back together to what's called the last universal common ancestor, which is an organism that we call LUCA. So basically, using genetic data, scientists and geneticists can estimate that over millions of years ago, there was basically a common ancestor that through its descendants produced all of the living, all the life forms that we know today. So the last universal common ancestor, or LUCA. So populations of organisms, right, that were ancestor to all current day organisms. It may not have been the first organism, but it was one of the first, and it's important because it's it from that ancestor, it gave rise, its descendants gave rise to the three domains of life that we know today. So let's start down here in the domain bacteria. So here's our domain. So here we have bacteria. And these cells do not have a nuclei, a nucleus, or any organelle compartments. So there are no mitochondria, no chloroplasts, there's no organelles. Bacteria, they are unicellular, meaning they're made up of a single cell. And they tend to have very simple molecular machinery inside. Basically meaning the organelles that the bacteria do have are very simple. So a cell wall, cilia, flagella, they're very simple. So we can see here, from the domain, which is this large circle. So within the domain of bacteria, we can have different kingdoms and phylums. So it jumps straight to different phylums of bacteria. And we'll take a look at exactly what makes a phylum here on our next page. So, excuse me. Next is Archaea. So Archaea, is our second domain. These are also going to be prokaryotes. They are going to be unicellular. And they, hang on, excuse me. Sorry, Archaea are unicellular, but they have some more complex machinery. They're more complex than bacteria, molecular machinery inside. And this is because Archaea are also known as extremophiles. So extremophiles, that basically means that these organisms thrive in extreme environments. The Archaea domain actually makes up about 20% of the microbial cells in the ocean. So, for example, we have thermophiles, These live in very hot environments. So think in an oil well or in a geyser. And then we have halophytes that live in extremely salty environments. So Archaea typically are bacteria that just live in extreme conditions. They're going to be slightly more complex versus bacteria, very simple, very primitive. They are not going to live in extreme conditions. These are the bacteria, when we talk about, if we get sick or, bacteria in the world, this is most of the bacteria that we are referring to. So the last domain of life we have is Eukarya. So Eukarya is a domain that contains all eukaryotes. So they have organelles and they have a nucleus. Some eukarya are going to be unicellular, like for example, protists can be unicellular, but then some eukarya are going to be multicellular. So for example, fungi, animals, and plants, right? Those are going to be multicellular. And of course, they are going to have complex molecular machinery. And by molecular machinery, again, we're just referring to the organelles inside this type of cell. So again, like if we're talking about plants, we're going to have, mitochondria, chloroplasts, you get into your rough ERs, your Golgi bodies. So we've got a lot of complex organelles in the eukarya domain. So those are the 3 domains of life. So let's flip to our next page here. Let's take a look at our human classification system. So we know already that our classification system from Carl Linnaeus, right? We go from largest, which is domain, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And so domain is the largest and most inclusive level of taxonomy, and species is the most specific and least inclusive. So we will start up here at species, very specific, and we will become more and more broad, right? So more general. So you can doodle yourself up here. So, smiley face, right? There we go. Give her some hair. There you go. Look at that. Beautiful. I'm so proud. So modern day human species, right? We have the formal scientific name of Homo sapiens. Remember, the naming system for species is binomial nomenclature, which means that each species receives basically 2 names, one from the genus and one from the species. When scientists classify organisms, they place them in groups based on their genetic similarities to other organisms and their similar traits and features. So we might have multiple organisms within a genus, but they'll only ever be one species. So let's take a look at what that means. So we are Homo sapiens. So our species is sapien, modern day human beings. But our genus, this group includes humans, modern day humans, and our ancestral species, like Neanderthals. So you can have, again, like Homo habilis, we share the same genus, Homo, but because they have a different species, we are Homo sapien, they were Homo habilis. So same genus, but different species. Then, right, we get a little bit more broad. We take a look at the family. So humans belong to a family of organisms called Hominidae, which is a group that contains tailless, large great apes. So great apes are going to be your chimps, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans. So we belong to the same family, Hominidae, but we are not the same genus, right? There are not enough DNA similarities or physical similarities for us to be in the same genus. But we are within the same family because we are tailless, large great apes. And then getting even more broad, we can look at the order. So all of the apes, including humans, because again, right, we're just becoming broader. So in genus, we're talking about all homos. In family, we're talking about all the hominidae. Now we are at order. So all of the apes, including humans, also belong to a larger group of primates. All primates have large brains, and most will have opposable thumbs. So the order primates are mammals with large brains. And again, most will have opposable thumbs. So these are going to be monkeys, apes, lemurs. So lemurs and small apes, they belong right to their own family, right? They are not in our family. They would be a different family. But if we become more generalized, right, more broad, we do fall under the same order, okay? Because order is the broadest. After order, we have the class. So all primates, right? So humans, apes, monkeys, all the primates belong to a larger class called Mammalia. This class contains all mammals, so Mammalia. Mammals are vertebrates with, let's say, hair and mammary glands. Mammary glands. So basically, they produce milk for their young. So examples of mammals would be humans, bats, dogs, horses, kangaroos, right? All those are mammals. We have hair and mammary glands. So that puts us in the same class. Still getting broader, move up a little bit, we enter the phylum Chordata. So all mammals belong to a larger phylum group called Chordata. All organisms within this phylum have a dorsal nerve cord that develops during right your embryo stage. Uh, animals with a dorsal nerve cord during development. I feel like that was written kind of poorly, but I apologize. If this dorsal nerve cord forms an actual backbone, we say that it has a vertebrae. Vertebrae. So basically, chordata is just referring to, right, the backbone, the vertebrae. So these are going to be things like birds, fish, reptiles. So we got penguins, we've got salmon, alligators, frogs, right? They all have a backbone. So they all belong to the phylum Chordata. Becoming broader still, we enter kingdom. So all organisms within the phylum Chordata belong to the animal kingdom. This kingdom contains vertebrates and invertebrates. So vertebrates have a backbone. Invertebrates do not have backbones. All of the organisms within the animal kingdom are going to be multicellular, heterotrophic, and eukaryotic. And they will, for the most part, reproduce sexually. So we're not only talking about just, humans and lemurs and bats, but at this point, we're also including insects and crustaceans. So they fall within the animal kingdom because they are multicellular, heterotrophic, meaning they have to go and get their own food, right? They're not plants, they're animals. Eukaryotic, and for the most part, they reproduce sexually. And then again, right, backing out, becoming more broad, we enter the domain Eukarya. The domain Eukarya has 4 main kingdoms, which include plant, fungi, protist, and animal. Organisms in the domain Eukarya are going to be made of eukaryotic cells that contain a nucleus and organelles, right, like the mitochondria. So they are complex molecular machines. So we have gone from being very, right, specific to the most general. So let's work the opposite way so we can kind of take another look at this. So we start with the domain Eukarya, which basically includes every single living thing that contains a nucleus. Okay, so all of the kingdoms, plant, animal, fungi, and protist, right? They all have a nucleus. But then I'm going to get a little bit more specific, and I want to look at just the animal kingdom. So now I'm weeding out my plants and my protist and my fungi, right? Because only organisms in the animal kingdom are multicellular, heterotrophic. So multicellular, that kind of eliminates protist. Heterotrophic, that eliminates plants, right? So we're getting more specific. And then kingdom down to the phylum Chordata. So I want to look at not just all animals, I want to look at animals that have a vertebrae. And then I become even more specific, and I want animals that are not only have a vertebrate, but that are mammals. So I'm looking at animals with a vertebrae that have hair and mammary glands. So my class is becoming smaller and it is becoming more specific. From all of the mammals, I want to look at just the primates. So these are going to be my mammals that have large brains and opposable thumbs. From there, I want to look at the family Hominidae, which are going to be just the great apes. And then within just that family, I'm going to look at the genus Homo, right, which is humans and our ancestors. And then finally, I want a specific species, which is sapiens. So using our classification system, I can go right from looking at every organism within a domain to looking at just one individual species. So that's it for our notes here from packet pages 170 and 169. If you have any questions or concerns, just let me know. Thanks.